It says we're live. Yep, we're on. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Friday Night on Sunday, the Vagabond Chef podcast. I've been out a couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, I went to a concert in Pittsburgh, and last week I was cooking at the Root to Table event with Taste of Blue Ridge at the Bavarian Inn in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. I had a really excellent time there. But I am back with you all this evening for a special Mother's Day edition with my mom, the Vagabond Mom, Sharon Welsch. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I feel like I should start things off now as a 2.5 year running parent with I'm sorry.
You wait, it gets worse.
I can't imagine what it must have been like raising a vagabond. Not even as hard as it must have been through high school, but then afterwards, when I remember quite a few times your first question whenever I called on the phone was, "Where are you?"
You were never good at checking in, or you weren't for a long time.
I'm still probably not.
You're better now.
I've learned that through my relationship and my responsibilities with the restaurant and being a daddy, but I wouldn't say it's my forte. So what was that like? How horrible was it to raise a vagabond, Mom?
It was challenging.
I can only imagine.
People you were challenged since the day you were conceived. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, and then you became a vagabond before you were even born.
That's true, isn't it?
It is. 5 weeks early, and you said, "I want out of here."
Yeah, and that's kind of how it was all through my life. I remember being pretty excited to get out of the valley after I graduated high school, and honestly, everywhere I've gone since then has been, when it's go time, it's go time.
Do you remember the sign on your door?
Oh, sure do. In July, I'm out of here.
Yep.
Yeah, that wasn't meant to be offensive. I was just excited to do something else. It was. Well, I'm sure I've done a lot of offensive things over the years. I think I've seen you cry like a total of 3 or 4 times, and I think of those, it's, let's say 4 of those 4 or 3 times were me.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I wipe out.
Well, that's probably smart. That's good for your longevity as a parent. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I always felt like you had my back. Like, I always felt like you were supportive, even when I went through that nasty teenage phase of like not exactly liking you because I was a teenager and I was stupid.
Well, that's
I always felt like I had your support, and that was super cool. Even like the most harebrained things, like I always felt like you and Dad both really supported me and were proud of me, even when it was dubious things to possibly be proud of.
Well, it's true. We always were. We always will be. But it was. That's why I have all this gray hair, Matt.
Yeah.
Like, it might have been still dark, if not.
Well, so I don't know. Maybe let's go back a little bit to when you began as a parent, and you kind of I feel like you weren't cut from the same cloth as what everyone would expect. You kind of forged your own path with things, and things were a little bit different back then. Can you talk a little bit about that, like what coming into parenthood? And
we were sort of like Dr. Spock. He was like the big guy back then, and
not the Star Trek guy.
No, not the Star Trek guy. The pediatrician.
Uh-huh.
And we were on the edge of, everybody had listened to him and people were starting to not. But I had his book, because you got to be the good parent. And in his book, it said that boys aren't born boys and girls aren't born girls. And boys will play with baby dolls and girls will play with trucks if you just give them the chance.
Mm-hmm.
We bought you this cute little Fisher Price baby doll, this little soft, cuddly baby doll, and you threw it in the trash. But you can pick up your trucks and go boom, boom, boom. So we decided, forget Dr. Spock. We'll just do it. We'll play it by ear.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we just play it by ear. Had a lot of friends having babies. We all talk to each other.
Yeah. Well, you so if I remember right, you went to like 1 semester of college and decided it wasn't for you, right?
I had 9 credit hours. You were born already then.
Uh-huh.
I think. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was 9 credit hours. When I was in school, all my teachers told me I should be a teacher because back in the days, like Colton always thinks, Megan's son Colton always thinks that it was like when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. But
Yeah.
way back then, girls were supposed to become secretaries or bank tellers or teachers or nurses.
Yeah.
Well, you know me. I mean, like, you would not want me to be your nurse.
You've got a pretty good bedside manner.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right. Suck it up. It doesn't hurt that bad.
No.
I would not be a good teacher, really. And I definitely couldn't work in a bank. And all the things were just not me.
Mm-hmm.
And all my teachers told me I should be a teacher. So after I had you, and I worked in a grocery store, and it closed when I was pregnant with you. And I thought I need to be able to do something to work. So I went back to school to be a teacher, 9 credit hours. I thought, this is just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a teacher, but I had some really awesome classes. I had a great speech class, and my art credit was photography. I had a really, really fun English class. So it worked out well.
Yeah.
But no.
Is that what got you into photography? Because I remember you taking pictures at the fair and doing a lot with photography.
Well, I always liked photography. That was just a chance to actually get into it. And we developed pictures and everything. It was really, really a fun class.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was how we took pictures at the fair. And that was how I had the money to start my Mary Kay business, because we didn't have any money, and we had taken pictures at the fair and sold them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had that money. So.
Well, that's kind of what I was talking about too, was I feel like, when you were getting out of high school, or even throughout your high school, you had a lot of people shooting on you and, kind of telling you what you should do and how you should be. And that doesn't really work for Sharon Welch.
No, well, I've actually had a couple classes, I guess, at both high schools in Marshall County about entrepreneurship, because I think still today, they don't really encourage people to go out on their own. Well, I was the kid in school that I always got in trouble for talking.
Gee, that trait hasn't followed down through the generations.
No, But I in 4th grade, I spent a lot of my time in the cloakroom, because all I could see was the board.
Uh-huh.
And that particular teacher would walk by and hit us over the knuckles with a ruler. And I sometime in there, I have a little piece of lead in here. I was playing with a guy behind me with a pencil, and it stuck in my hand, and I was always in trouble for that sort of thing. I liked artsy things. I liked outside. I thought maybe I would want to be a meteorologist, and my teacher said, girls aren't meteorologists. Where would you ever get a job being a meteorologist?
Yeah.
So I just learned to shut down my dreams and just go on and be the little goody two shoes and do my thing. And I was very shy, actually quiet, unless I knew people. I didn't know what I wanted to be, so I just didn't be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Got out of school, went to work in a dry cleaners, went to work in a grocery store. It was so long ago that people don't even remember the name of the grocery store.
Oh, gosh. Was it Big Wheel?
No, Big Wheel wasn't grocery. It was discount, but it was right next to Big Wheel, where the last thing in there was Hudson Fitness.
Oh, okay.
It was Penny Fair.
Penny Fair. Yeah, I don't remember Penny Fair.
Yeah, it's the first time anybody ever cussed at me.
Yeah.
Had a really, really, really happy childhood, very guarded childhood. As I grew up in rural Marshall County, everybody, I went to school with the same people for 8 years. Everybody knew everybody. Nobody moved in or out, and we were all friends. And then I went to the grocery store and got cussed out. That never happened to me before. So when the store closed, I decided that I hated people, and whatever I did for the rest of my life, it had to be something by myself, because I hated people.
Well, that didn't work out.
That didn't at all. And you know what?
So,
I love people. So.
Well, so what was it that pulled you out of your shell and got you so comfortable in front of people? Was it Mary Kay?
It was.
Okay.
I was 30, and Dad had been out of work for 3 years at Ormet, and we didn't have any money. We were out of all unemployment and everything. We lived on a dairy farm, and the owner let Dad work for him, and then he didn't charge us rent. And we had a garden, and there were lots of deer, and people gave us beef, and Dad would help people with building fence or putting up hay, and they would give him beef. So we made it, we managed, we had food to eat, but I needed a job. And Dad had dared me to sign up for a Mary Kay facial. And I grew up with boys, and if they dare you, you got to do it. So I did, knowing I'd never win this facial. And she called, and I just felt like it was God hitting me over the head that this is where I'm supposed to be, because she came and I tried to talk her out of coming, and she said all the right things, but was not at all pushy. She came out, gave me a facial. When she walked out the door, she had my signed agreement and a hot check for the kit. But I knew in 2 days, she promised not to cash the check for 2 days. And I knew then I would have money from pictures we sold.
Yeah.
So, but I'm only here in this job because I desperately needed a job, and I hadn't gone to college. I didn't want to go back to work in a grocery store. Yeah, I needed Dad to be able to work on the farm to not have to pay rent and to have food. So this was the perfect alternative for me. And I started out.
What did she say in that first meeting to convince you that a tomboy who doesn't like people should sell makeup? And
But
I don't.
No dresses. No, yeah, I was kind of not the Mary Kay type. She just
did you ride your horse to this meeting?
No, she came to my house.
Oh, okay.
She lived in St. Clairsville, and she came to my house out in Limestone and back a dirt road, past Dad and the neighbor doing something out in the corn crib, and they were all covered in corn dust. And still came to my house, me in a t-shirt and jeans, and showed me the product and told me how good it was and told me it sells itself. And I guess I believed her, because she wasn't at all pushy. She just was real. And I thought, I know I'm going to hate this job, but I can learn it. It looks like a good way to make money. So I'll learn how to do it. When Dad goes back to work, I'll quit. And that'll be cool. And obviously I didn't like people and didn't like makeup, so it wasn't going to be something I'd do forever.
Right.
My national sales director, in her infinite wisdom, told me that my first assignment was to go to the store and look people in the eye and say hi. And I did that for a week. I just would look at somebody and go, hi. I doubt hi.
Well, that's not intimidating at all.
And then the next week she's like, okay, now go smile, say hi, and then say something, some kind of small talk, even if it's just, boy, isn't it a pretty day today? And so I did, and she actually coached me step by step in how to talk to people. And then I started to get used to it. You start out in Mary Kay, you start out with doing your friends. So started out with Sandy Fitzwater, Mary Niehaus, my best friend since childhood, had my first classes for me. And Mary, I think Mary was the first one, but she's called me the next day. She says, how did they train you so well? They didn't train me that fast. I didn't know what I was doing, but I seemed like I did to them. And I learned, I did all the training I could do and learned all I could do, and found out that I really like people. And
you just don't like being cussed at.
I don't at all like being
fair.
cussed at. And I don't like my boss would say, there's a limit on this and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then somebody would complain to him after we look like the bad guy, and he'd go, oh yeah, go ahead and give it to him. I don't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't like everybody, but in my job, I can only deal with the ones that I do like.
Right.
If I don't like them, they probably don't like me either.
Well, I think it's really interesting and funny that you went through that process with, going to the grocery store and making eye contact and learning how to do small talk, because I kind of went through something similar when I started the Vagabond Chef, because I had traveled a lot, but mostly it was on my own. And I really kind of kept my head down and just checked things out and tried to be invisible for the most part. Like, well, when I went to Europe and the Dominican Republic and Japan, like I was, in Japan, I couldn't help but be noticed.
Yeah, we thought it was pretty funny. You thought you were going to not be a
yeah. I tried to be as
who is that tall man?
Yeah, but I tried to be as quiet and subtle as possible. I know it's a sliding scale, but when I started the Vagabond Chef, I told myself, look, you gotta step out of your comfort zone and talk to people. And I remember riding across the country on the motorcycle. Like it's a great conversation starter whenever I was fueling up or whatever. And I would hand people a sticker and I would tell them what I was doing and try to interact with folks. And as I've furthered that on in my career and done the restaurant and everything, like it's been a process of continually stepping outside of my comfort zone to learn how to how to connect with people. And at least I was lucky enough to have had a background in 4-H.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, you started out, you were 6 when I started Mary Kay.
Yeah.
So you had all that. You learned whatever I learned. And then you got into 4-H at 9, and you did so well in 4-H. And then I loved 4-H as an adult. I dropped out of 4-H as a child because I was too shy to give the presentations.
Mm.
So I dropped out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a blast as an adult. So yeah, but you had your Mary Kay background, and your 4-H background was fantastic. You always did great on presentations.
I hated them, though. I absolutely hated them. I hated having to do them. And I remember they had to threaten us that we couldn't go to camp if we didn't do the presentations. And that's the only reason I did them.
Right.
They were the last thing I wanted to do.
That rule.
I remember fumbling with my my posters at the state level. I can't remember what my talk or was on, but just to try to eat up more time, because I had like 3 minutes of presentation that I had to somehow make into 10 minutes. And it was absolutely horrible and embarrassing. And just
well, because you usually wrote it when you were in the room before your presentation.
Yeah, there was a lot
of practice and do her posters and practice her speech and do the whole thing, and you'd walk in and write it the morning right before you gave your presentation and still win.
Well, we have a term for that in the kitchen, Mom. It's called pulling it out of our ass. Yeah, and I much preferred that over actually preparing properly.
Well, in the grocery store, it was, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit.
Right. Right. And I definitely attempted that with different levels of success. Jeremy Gates is saying hi in the comments. He said his mom is Janet Vickers and his stepdad is Tom Vickers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So Janet, he's saying hi. Thanks for checking in, Jeremy. So you got into Mary Kay. You were talking to people. You're wearing makeup and you're doing the thing, but like, you're like, I mean, I'm biased, but I feel like you're a pillar of the community now, and like you do so much for people, like whether it was through 4-H when we were younger and I was in 4-H, or through the chamber, or through Rotary. I'm probably other the church. And how did that fit in? Where did that come along?
Well, I guess when I was a kid, back fourth grade was just like famous. But when I was in 4th grade and the teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to make a difference in the world." And she laughed and said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" I didn't know.
Yeah.
There were all kinds of things from that year. Like I remember I had a picture of somebody sailing on the ocean. I was like, someday I'm going to do that. She's like, "You're never going to do that." And I have. Mm-hmm. And I had a picture of somebody helping somebody in a third world country. And I was like, "Man, I want to do that." And she's, "How would you ever do that?" And I have. So yeah, that was like, she's been long gone, but wherever she is, I often wonder if I just want to say, "This one's for you." But I just wanted to make it, I felt like, I always believed, and it's just been reinforced over the years, that each of us can make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And I think when Grandma Mary died, I really knew it. Because, Grandma, she stayed at home. She's not all like me. I want to go. Mm-hmm. Grandma just wanted to stay at home, do her thing. And she worked for a while, but when she retired and she was happy being home. But when she died, all the people that said, "Oh my gosh, I just loved your mom." Whenever I walked past her house, she'd bring water out for the dog. Mm-hmm. Or, "Oh, I just loved your mom." Whenever I walked past her house, she'd always ask me for a drink. Or, "I just love to stop and talk to your mom." And I realized that my mom, who was the most quiet person ever, was making a difference in the world all by herself. Mm-hmm. And if you take what we can do by ourselves and put us together in a group, then, and as a group of like-minded people, how much good can that group do?
Right.
So I started in 4-H because you guys are in 4-H, and I started that with 4-H leader, and it just reinforced what I believed anyway. And then I got involved in the chamber and in Rotary, and they're both the same thing. Rotary is like on the biggest scale because it's worldwide. And I alone can do nothing. I can't be a philanthropist. I don't make that kind of money. but I can take my little bit and your little bit and somebody else's little bit, and we can put it all together, and I can use my talents, and we can make a great change. Mm-hmm. So it's something I always wanted to do, and I can do it as a group. My mm-hmm. talents are building a team and making things fun. So if I use my talents to build a team and somebody else uses their talents in detail and keeping track of things and making the nuts and bolts work, and somebody else uses their talent in something else, but we all put it together as a team, wow, we can make a difference in the world. And so we do.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
That's great.
And I meet more people, and the more people I meet, the better it is.
Right.
I have the first 30 years of my life to make up for, you see.
What was the project you're most proud of? Do you have one that like really sticks out?
In volunteer things?
Yeah.
It's got to be the Mexico trip.
Yeah.
That was a big
recap
deal.
that for folks who don't know. What all did you guys do?
It was in 2005. It was Rotary's 100th birthday, and Rotary International was big on international projects. Our district governor that year wanted a big project, and he was in the Weirton Club. One of his Rotarians was on the team. Myself and David Board, who was from our club, and a guy from Westover, and he just wanted to travel and have Rotary pay for it. But but he was cool and he could speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And Connie, the one from Weirton, Connie Quinn, if she's watching this, Connie could speak Spanish. David could speak some Spanish. I knew nothing. Adios. Quesadilla. But we took Spanish lessons and opened them up to the community. And our friends at the Acapulco, Chris, I hope he watches this. Chris was huge, but they taught me mostly food things. So I was about doing an international project, but man, I could order breakfast with the best of them.
Hey, food things are important.
it's important. But anyway, we started out with $500 of Mouseville's money, and we ended up with a $30,000 project. And we got a school bus in West Virginia, filled it up with supplies, drove it to Mexico, and then had a bunch of other supplies shipped to Mexico. The bus didn't get across the border for a long time. It was in jail at the border, but we did get the stuff that was in it across the border. So we met the best, very, very best friends, and some of them are still my friends. In fact, now they're your friends because I know Blanca is one of your friends. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a super cool trip. I wish I could have been a part of that. I don't know where I was when that happened. Remember. What year was it?
2005.
Oh, I might have been in Chicago then.
Maybe. Yeah, you would have, that would have been good for you. When we went on we had two trips. We had a planning trip that Rotary International made us do, which I thought was silly, but it was really a very good thing. They knew what they were doing. We went down and met the people we were going to work with. And what we did was, I found out from Rotary International that there were 9 clubs in Tampico, which is where we identified. Our friends at Acapulco were from Gonzales, and Tampico was the nearest Rotary. There were 9 Rotary clubs in Tampico. So my friend Lucio from the Acapulco translated my letter, and we sent them an email in Spanish to all the clubs. And 2 of the clubs answered back right away. One answered in English, which was great because their international chair had worked in the United States a lot. And he's an awesome person. The other one, I mean, they thought I could speak Spanish, right? Because they got this email in Spanish. So Lucio was my translator, and Lucio's a smart guy. He's got an MBA in business now and owns his own restaurant in Georgia. But
nice.
He helped us, and we ended up working with 2 clubs in Tampico, 3 clubs in West Virginia. And who knows? I mean, we had to count at the time how many people were impacted, and it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And we helped a hospital that had a cancer wing for kids with no support except from the community. They had 1 IV pole, and volunteers had to hold the IVs for the other kids.
Holy cow.
Yeah. We met this lady and this adorable little girl that waited after her treatment to thank us for coming there.
Oh, wow.
Because they were helping her daughter. And then they told us a story that she was late for her daughter's treatment one day. And they said, why were you late? And, because they have their volunteers lined up to help. And she said, well, I had to wait until my husband got off work in the fields and got paid his 2 pesos, which at that time was less than a quarter. So I could afford to get her here.
Wow.
Now, you know what? I was broke at the time. Dad wasn't working. I didn't have money, but I felt like a rich American right then.
Yeah.
I had a quarter.
Right.
And she didn't have a quarter to get her daughter to treatment. So we helped them, and the Mexican Red Cross was like their first responders. They had 7 ambulances for 750,000 people. 6 of them ran. One of them had a cot. The other ones had backboards. One of them had a defibrillator. So we took stuff for them, and we helped a homeless shelter. And then our main project, we call it Alma's Place because the name is really long and hard to say, but it was for kids with neurological problems. You're muted, Matt.
Oh, thanks.
But they had a son with neurological problems, brought him to the United States, learned how to work with them, and we're still working with this doctor in Philadelphia. And they trained parents and siblings of other kids to work with their own kids. So what they weren't just learning at school, they were able to teach it when they went home. And that was just an amazing project. So it was very cool. We were actually worked with them for several years, but got to the point it was too dangerous to go back.
Well, that's a life-changing experience for sure. And I haven't seen that in Mexico, but that makes me think of some of the things I saw when I was in the Dominican Republic.
No doubt. Yeah, some of those places people lived in, it's like, wait, you can understand why they went out of there. You know? And the second trip when we went on the bus, David Ward's 11-year-old son went with us, and he kept saying, Sharon, did you see that? Did you see that? And it's like, he said, those people had a car door for the side of their house. You know, and some of them had just cardboard. I mean, it was like the way they lived was horrible. And it just puts it in perspective.
It really does. It really does. And it makes, you're right, and it does make, no matter how hard we may have it, it makes us count our blessings, right?
For sure.
And did you ever think, as a Marshall County girl, getting told that you were never going to do these things, that you would get to help this many people, or to do that, make that trip and stand in Mexico and all meet these great people?
You know what? I didn't really, I just kind of put it out of my mind. I didn't think about it for the longest time, but in Mexico, well, I'd already done the sailing thing on the ocean before we went to Mexico. And that was like, we're out there and it's like, this is what I saw in the picture.
Yeah.
And then when we were in Mexico, we were in the homeless shelter, and this little man in a wheelchair reached up and I reached my hand down and took his, and he takes my hand and he started talking in Spanish. Now, the key to me was you got to talk slow, because I still wasn't very good at Spanish. And that was with a club that we had an interpreter with us for them. And he said, he's telling you that he appreciates you coming here and thanking you for helping them. And somebody took a picture, and it just hit me when she took that picture. It's like, this is the other picture I saw of somebody was helping somebody in a third world country. And I thought, this is it. I'm doing what I used to want to do.
Right.
So, visualization's a big thing. And I had that in the back of my mind, I think, all that time. Like with you, I've told you, I'm always like, it's pretty cool how you told me years ago what you wanted to do, and you visualized it, and now you're doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, that must have been instilled in me from an early age, because I mean, at least the way I tell the story, I was really into reading about explorers. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I always talk about reading the story about Sir Edmund Hillary, the first white guy to climb Mount Everest, and how he grew up, and he played soccer, and he would sleep in the winter with his windows open. And I remember trying to sleep in the winter with the windows open, and you got mad at me about it because it was, cold. But then in 5th and 6th grade at Glendale, reading all the books they had in the library about the different frontiersmen like Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone, and really wanting to go out and explore all those things. And I definitely, had the attitude of, if someone else can do it, then I can do it. And also wanted people to get from that, like, if I can do it, you can do it.
Right.
And that was definitely super important. So if, having done all these things, Mom, like what's left that you want to accomplish that you haven't yet? Do you have any like important bucket list items?
Well, I don't know. My bucket list is changing.
Yeah.
I've learned that you got to get your bucket list done when you're younger. Because one of the things on my bucket list was whitewater rafting. Yeah.
At 70, maybe, I mean, it's done, but maybe not.
It is. But I have learned that I am breakable, and my reflexes are slower than they used to be. And maybe now a nice long lazy river trip would be wonderful. But I don't really want to do the whitewater rafting anymore. I do still want to fly in a hot air balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And I do still want to fly in a helicopter. Although I noticed one day as the life flight helicopter was landing over our house, because we just live a block from the landing zone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming in, and I was looking up at it and thinking, I just wonder what it looks like. Like, I really want to fly in a helicopter. And I thought, oh my God, what am I saying? I'm visualizing. I want to fly in a helicopter as I'm looking at life flight.
Yeah, maybe not the
God,
best
you know what I
energy to
mean,
put
right?
out there.
You know what I mean. I don't mean a life flight. I want to be healthy.
Well, yeah, I think I already flew in a helicopter, I think, right?
Did you?
Didn't they fly me in a helicopter down to Morgantown after I
No,
was
I think
born?
they drove you. That was back in the old days.
Oh,
honey.
they drove me. Well, I
Yeah.
tell the story that they flew me. So
No, they drove you, but it wasn't like you went the day you were born. So you started your travels, broke out early, and traveled the very first day.
yeah, well. So fly in a hot air balloon, fly in a helicopter, in a healthy way.
Yes.
Anything else?
I really do want to do
Whitewater.
the lazy river. I mean, they really do those.
Yeah, no, rafting trips are great.
Yeah. I still want to go horseback riding on a beach.
Yeah.
Not done that yet.
You and Megan should make a trip. At least you and the kids should go to Chincoteague Island sometime.
I know. Well, yeah, and when I was a kid, Walt Disney started out with the movies about the Chincoteague horses, and
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to go, and I don't know why I've not ever done that. That's not even far away, really.
It's not that far away. I was really hoping to go when we closed the restaurant down for Labor Day week this year. I was thinking about down there, but it's just a little too far for a quick motorcycle ride. It's like, I think it's like 8-hour drive or something.
Yeah.
And it's a little, and especially through that area with that traffic, I don't necessarily want to be on the bike for all that. So,
True.
But I would really like to go see that. I was supposed to go there in 96, maybe. I ended up going to Indiana instead.
What? Indiana Chincoteague. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just, that's how it worked out. It was when I was working at the art gallery in Pittsburgh, and one of the art gallery people, I think, had a house there they were going to send me to. I don't remember how it all worked out, but it worked out that I didn't go to Chincoteague Island.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's still there. Don't wait till too long, though.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was heavily vagabonding, and Jeremy Gates asked where I came up with the name Vagabond, so I do have to tell that story really quickly. But I remember at one point when I was heavily vagabonding, that I remember you saying something along the lines of, why don't you wait to do this until, like, you don't have to sleep on loading docks and in cars, and you can be like maybe moderately safe and know where you're going to get your meals from. And I understand where that sentiment came from, but I'm really glad I did it the way that I did. And
it's a good thing you did in hindsight, now that you lived through it.
I mean,
as a parent, knowing your son's going out there doing those things, though.
Yeah, I can't imagine. We'll see what path Owen takes, but I may get the opportunity to feel some of those feelings here at some point.
He's very independent. I have a feeling it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. Well, I tell people all the time, is he's smart, he's curious, he's independent, he's all the things that are going to make him an awesome human being and a real son of a bitch to raise.
Well, you used to, when you would do some crazy something as a kid, your teachers would always pat me on the arm and go, it's okay. It's because he's so smart. And we know that Owen's wicked smart. I mean, that kid is just amazing what he knows. So yeah, I'll be telling you, it's okay, honey. It's just because he's so smart.
Right.
And
well, so
yeah.
Well, this is you've earned it. You've earned every snicker that you can get. And I'm sure Megan's happy too, because she thought she was going to have to raise my penance and her penance, but now I'm going to get mine. So that's fine. It's totally fair. I'm here for it. But I was actually, when I was visiting my 4-H friend Martha out in California, and it was after I left a visit with her one time that she was talking to her grandma back here in West Virginia, and her grandma asked her, what does your friend Matt do? And Martha said, well, he kind of works for a while and he saves up all of his money, and then he goes and he travels until he runs out of money, and then he gets another job. And it sounds, I mean, to me, that sounds like not the most responsible way to live. But
you were single, so
I was, and grandma, Martha's grandma said, "Oh, he's a vagabond." Like it was the coolest damn thing ever. And I just thought that was a really great reaction to have. And that was probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years before I decided to start the Vagabond Chef. And that was when I was cooking in Idaho, and I knew I wanted to do something else. And I had this like come to Jesus moment where I realized I was going to probably have to work. And I was really enjoying cooking. And I had just gotten my first motorcycle, which was something I always wanted to do since I was a kid, and Dad had his bike. And I've done a lot of traveling. I've done a lot of writing. I've done a lot of photography. And so I was like, well, I could put all those things together and do this like culinary travel blog. And then I was talking to my friend Kevin, who was kind of like my motorcycle mentor. I met him when I was cooking at Beans and Bagels in Chicago. And then he's from Pittsburgh, I met him in Chicago, and then he lives in Seattle now, or actually I think south of Seattle somewhere. And I was telling him about my idea and my plan, and he's like, "Oh, well, you're going to be like the Vagabond Chef." And that was it. I was like, perfect. I love it. I love you probably remember, Mom, I really enjoy guttural, harsh language. Some of those words are cuss words. And I like the juxtaposing the nice guttural Germanic word vagabond next to the French word chef. And like I like that it's like edgy and elegant at the same time. I like that those two things coming together. But yeah, I was thinking about us talking while I was on my trip last week, and I was like, boy, I just remember being in like 6th grade and cussing up a storm and spitting everywhere. I remember you yelling at me for spitting everywhere, and I won a Poison, the band Poison t-shirt at the carnival. I think it was right around 5th or 6th grade. And I think there was like a scantily clad woman on the back or something, and you didn't like it. So I took it back. Like you kind of gave me like, is that really the image you want to portray? Like, and in hindsight, hell yeah. But at the time I felt guilty. So I took it back to the Carney tent, and I asked to trade it in. And they wouldn't let me trade it in, so I just gave it back to him.
Oh, jeez.
And then I probably went on top of the grandstand and spit some loogies off of it or something. I don't know. So what was, do you remember a specific time where it was really on the fence whether you were going to let me live or not?
Oh, so many. So many.
Is there a good one that comes to mind quickly?
The worst one was you had lung problems because you were 5 weeks early, and you were 6 pounds at 5 weeks early.
Yeah.
So your body had grown, but your lungs hadn't developed. Right. And you were on a lot of oxygen when you were in Morgantown, and you always had lung problems and immunity problems for a long time. And I would rock you in this rocking chair that's still here in my office, and we'd rock night after night after night because you couldn't sleep when you lay down.
Mm-hmm. We can see the arm of the rocking chair in your frame there.
Where is it? There it is.
There it is.
So you wheeze so loud we could hear you wheezing from like one room to the other. And I told you all growing up, don't you dare ever smoke. His Grandma Mary smoked. And there were other people around that smoked. Don't you ever smoke. With your lungs, don't you smoke. You won't be able to do it. You're going to kill your lungs. If you ever smoke, I will reach down your throat and pull out your lungs. I must have told you that 100 times. So you go off to Pittsburgh, go to art school, when you smell like cigarette smoke. I figure, well, you're around blood. You're a smart guy. You know not to smoke. And then we came out of a wedding, and there you stood outside smoking.
Yeah.
And I remember what'd you do with that cigarette anyway?
I can't remember. I palmed it. I made it go away super
it
quick.
Was
I was too slow. Yeah. Well, the best man at that wedding was feeding me Boilermakers, and that was a rough time.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Well, I remember coming up to you, and you were too tall by then for me to reach down your throat and pull out your lungs.
I remember how upset you were.
I was mad. I was really mad. And we came home, and friends were photographers, and they were from Wheeling, and they actually stopped on their way home and said, what a good guy you are. And you were really worried because we were so mad at you. And I rocked him night after night after night. in that chair. Just here I am holding you, and I'm trying to get some sleep, and you're,
Mm-hmm.
if I mean, I can't like relax because I'm going to drop the baby.
Right.
And it's like, nope, I'm mad.
Yeah. Well, and that's fair. I mean,
And then you just promised to never do it in front of me again.
well, and it's been 15 or 16 years now since I quit. So the occasional cigar is as bad as it gets.
That's not, that's occasional cigar I can deal with.
And they have every right to be mad about that. I mean, when Owen was born premature and in NICU, it was terrifying throwback to the beginning of my life, and I can only imagine what that must have been like. So yeah, no, you were allowed to be mad at me for that.
Yeah,
that's not as fun as my favorite story. It was when we were in the upstairs kitchen. I was in high school for sure, probably a junior in high school, and you were really mad at me, and you called me a son of a bitch, and I laughed so hard, and you did not think it was funny.
I don't remember that now, but I'm sure I didn't.
Yeah, no, you really didn't.
But I would go, I would go to whether it was Mary Kay or somewhere else. I took like a leadership development class of some sort, or an attitude class, and I'd come home and I'd hear you go, "Oh, Mom's been in one of her classes again," and then you would see how quickly you could get me out of that mode that I was in. And then one time we were driving down the road one time, and you looked over at me, you did something that made me mad immediately. And you just smiled and you said, "Mom, I can push your buttons faster than anybody else."
Well, wasn't I a shit?
Yes, you were. Yep.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, so that was the smoking one was probably the worst, but the time that you were walking out the lane to find us, and the babysitter didn't keep a good enough eye on you, and you disappeared. She didn't know you disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbors caught you walking out the lane. You were coming to find us.
Mm-hmm. I dimly remember that.
Yeah, I don't know how old you would have been. You were pretty little.
I was little because it seemed like a really long way. Did I make it to the Allens, all the way to the Allens?
No,
or just to
Dallas
Dallers?
caught you.
Yeah, but I remember it felt like a really, really long trip.
Well, it was a lot of steps for a little guy.
It was. We lived out a long lane, and then the road between our house and theirs was long too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember losing my winter boot in a frozen over mud puddle out there at the head of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I got it free or if I walked back to the house with only one boot on. I can't remember. But
I think it was still in there.
that sounds more like something I would do.
Can I tell them my favorite fun story?
Yeah.
Funny story was living in the same place, and you were at Allen's,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Marshall County, so there was a hall.
Oh, this is a good example of why I'm so good at sports.
Yes. So we hadn't been out there. You were little when you were 3 when we moved out there,
Mm-hmm.
and we lived on a hill, and you hadn't played sports, being the oldest child. So you were over there, and we could see right across the hill.
Mm-hmm.
You could see them, and everybody was out in their side yard playing kickball, I think. And
yeah, something like I think it was kickball.
I think it was kickball. One of those where you run around the bases, but I'm pretty sure it was kickball.
Yeah. And
everybody was laughing and screaming at, how you do when you play ball. And I heard Janet, the mom, yelling something. And then we saw you running toward home. And that was a good ways. And you ran down the road past Dallers. And then you went out of sight because there's, just the way the hill laid. And we waited a little bit, and then here you came running over the hill to our house. Brian, running and you were out of breath because that's a long, long way.
It's a long way.
Honey, what's the matter? And he said, "I don't know what happened. I don't know why they got mad at me, but Janet told me to go home." I'm like, "Well, why did she tell you to go home?" And he said, "I don't know. I was on third base and just out of nowhere, she just said, 'Go home, Matt.' And you said, she didn't even tell me to go home. She said, 'Run home.'" And you did. You ran all the way home, and Janet felt horrible when she found out about it.
Yeah, I never did care for sports all that much.
Well, that was hard when we moved back down here. Then you were what, 10?
I don't remember. I never could remember ages. I always remember grades, and it was
like 4th grade.
I was going into 4th grade when we moved down to Glendale again.
And you didn't fit in because you didn't play sports, and everybody in Glendale played sports. They were in Scouts and they played sports. you were in 4-H and you didn't play sports.
Right.
So yeah, that didn't make your life here very easy, really.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
I also will never forget of the hill going down from Allen's. It was all gravel road, and I remember me and Josh Kuntz wrecking our BMX bikes on that hill and just being full of cinders. And I don't remember how I got home. I just remember being in the bathtub and you pouring mercurochrome on it, and it was the worst feeling ever.
Bad stuff. Well,
Almost as bad as the allergy needles they put in my back when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
that was no fun either.
Oh
well, so now here it is. Terry Mazzy Goff says happy Mother's Day, Mama Welch.
Thank you.
So what is it like now, Mom? Like you're the Vagabond Mom.
I am. So when you start out, and I was Sharon Ryan, and then I became Sharon Welsch, and I was Sharon Welsch, and then I had kids, and then I became the Mary Kay lady, and then you guys got into 4-H and got out there, and you both were well known throughout all of 4-H land, and in school, and then I became Matt's mom or Megan's mom, and so then you went away, you came back, and then I was Matt's mom again, and then now I'm the Vagabond Mom.
Well, there
somebody knows you.
There have been at least a few times that I've been Sharon's son. So,
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. Well, and I told Dad the other day, I run into people all the time who know him from where we met and, or speak very highly of him. And even more often I run into people who know you and speak very highly of you and everything that you do. And I don't always remember to pass that on. So I'm sorry to the folks that have told me to tell Mom hi, and I haven't.
He didn't do it. You do sometimes.
I think I think we're all very involved and trying to do good things, and
well, I think we're just really proud of all the good things you do and the things that you do for the community, and donations and cooking at places and benefit burgers and all the stuff. And I'm just happy that I'm able to be the Vagabond Mom and help you out in whatever capacity. But my friends all laugh about that, because what I hate to do most in my own business is what I do in yours.
Well, after a younger adulthood of activism or whatever, and a lot of I really enjoyed the traveling that I did and all the places that I went, but it wasn't super fulfilling, and it was great, but there was a depth that wasn't there. And the Vagabond Chef has been like my one big attempt at leaving the world a little bit better than I found it, and actually giving something back. And as hard and difficult as it's been, it is definitely the most fulfilling fulfilled I've ever felt. And I think at the end of the day, I feel like I've been able to do a lot of good, and it's really cool. But I had another thought. Now I lost it. What was it?
I don't know.
Oh, I was going to bring up, I did not, in fact, let you know that I won Guys Grocery Games until we saw it on the TV.
You did not.
People ask me about that a lot.
Oh, yeah. People ask me about that a lot too. Yeah. So I took you to the airport, sent you off to LA, came back and picked you up at the airport. And of course, I was so excited. And I said, well, how did you do? And you said, well, Mom, I can't tell you. I said, what do you mean you can't tell me? Well, I know why. I've been around long enough to know why. So I knew why. And you said, all I can tell you is I feel good about I feel good about all the dishes I fixed or something. But it was dishes. Well, we had binge watched Guys Grocery Games by the time you did this. So I knew that if you did dishes, you passed the first round. Now, what I didn't know is that in your particular one, there were only 2.
Right.
So, but yeah, I didn't know until that watch party at the restaurant was so daggone fun.
Yeah, that was a super cool night for sure. Yeah, I remember sitting on the steps of my trailer in the back of the store after I won, I called you to check in. And I said, well, I think things are going pretty well. I feel like I'm representing West Virginia, and that's really what I came out here to do. And I was so tempted to tell you, but they had me sign that gag order, and I didn't want to get in trouble.
Well, I'm glad you did, because that would have been, I don't know how in the world you kept it quiet, but I don't think I could have.
Well, I can't keep a secret.
Yes, absolutely you can. And I remember that night we were watching it, and when it was on the final time, and you picked up pork chops. Well, I know from the restaurant what your pork chops are like.
Uh-huh.
And you got pork chops, and what was the one girl making that she used turkey bacon on?
That was the first round.
Mac and cheese.
Yeah, we both made mac and cheese, but she used turkey
That's right.
bacon.
Yeah. I remember her walking out the door going, I'll never do turkey bacon again.
I felt bad for her, because that was like a callback to her childhood. That was her when her mom would make mac and cheese when she was a kid. Her mom used turkey bacon. So and good for her for being true to that and that memory, and what she wanted to do, and it just didn't work out for her. But
anyway, when you're the last round, when you were what was the other guy was making street tacos or something?
Yeah, he made shrimp tacos.
Yeah, they looked really yummy.
Yeah, they did.
When you grabbed pork chops, I thought, oh, he's gonna win. I've tasted his pork chops. So yeah, well, that's something too. When you first came back here, and you were going to be a caterer, and your first event was an Irish dinner up at Grandview Park, and you were having Irish stew with lamb, and I said, I don't like lamb, Matt. And you're like, how could you not like lamb? I don't know, I don't like lamb. I don't like it. I've never liked it. And you said, well, you've never tasted mine.
I mean,
and you were right. It was amazing. So, and you've done that like with hummus. You're like, have some hummus. Like, I don't like hummus. Well, you've never tasted mine. And I still don't like hummus anywhere else, but I could sit and eat your hummus all day long. So we were just talking about that not too long. I think it was maybe with this benefit burger, because it has ramp stuff in it. Somebody was saying, I don't know about the ramps. I'm like, Matt made it. Trust him. It's gonna be fine.
Have you tried it yet?
No, because I haven't had a chance to be there for dinner, and this month's going really fast.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
so
it is. I think
get up there and try it.
I think it turned out pretty doggone good. Cool. Well, you were always a good sport. Like I remember when you visited in Chicago, we went out to my friend Aki's place and got sushi. And you said, don't tell me which one has raw fish in it. Like, okay. Spoiler alert. They've all got raw fish in them, Mom.
That was my first sushi, and I still won't eat it unless I have somebody that knows what they're doing to tell me what I can eat. Yeah.
Well, but yeah, I think you've been decently open, and it's been really interesting. And I enjoy talking to you about like the dishes that I grew up with and the things that we ate, and then like looking back to what Grandma Mary used to cook, or finding things that maybe I didn't even eat growing up, or I don't remember eating, but trying to look for those regional dishes. It's been a really cool way to connect and share stories and stuff.
Yeah. Grandma was an amazing cook.
Yeah, she really was. I totally understand her recipes now that I've been doing this for 25 years now. I think I have a cooking experience. So I understand the little pinches and the dashes.
Right. I remember she showed me how to make bread. She said, just mix in water into flour until it's good and gooey. Yeah, that was the recipe. Yeah. And I don't measure anything now. I never measure stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was that's why the French have so much credit with modern cooking, because I think they were the first ones to really enforce, exact measurements for things.
Well, remember, I think I tagged you in something on Facebook about never measuring how much food or how many ingredients I put in food. And it's just, I just add them until I hear the voices of the ancestor go, yeah, child.
Yep. I do the same thing. And Chef Tony up at Community Kitchen Pittsburgh actually said that as well when I was up there, and she's from Barbados and mentioned that. And I said, oh, I say the same thing. So that was really cool. It's been a really cool opportunity to meet and connect with other people that are, no matter what their background is, we all have that touchstone of cooking. Right. And it's, throughout the whole Vagabond Chef thing, it was instant rapport with folks because we shared that together.
Right. Well, I think it's neat that you've gone all over the country, well, and even internationally, and you've picked up things from those places that you can bring back here and do here. And it's hysterical to me when you were in Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
you called me one day, and I think it was Grandma Mary's cabbage stew,
Mm-hmm.
which was always just cabbage potato stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted to know what she put in it. I'm like, well, cabbage, potatoes, ham, salt and pepper. And like, and I had my cousin Joyce added carrot, and that was good. So I had a little bit of carrot. Well, what else? Cabbage, potatoes. And you're like, but what else? Well, Mom didn't have all these neat ingredients that you have. And
Right.
then another one was her tomato and cucumber stuff. What
Mm-hmm.
kind of vinegar she used? She used vinegar.
Yeah.
We had when we were kids, we had apple cider vinegar and white vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma Edna used white vinegar. Grandma Mary used apple cider vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
Dad didn't know there was anything else. I didn't know there was anything else. But there was one bottle of vinegar. You didn't have all these different kinds of stuff.
Right. Right. Well, and I've made both of those dishes for dinners and gotten great responses from them. I did Grandma Mary's soup at the Community Kitchen Pittsburgh dinner, and it is. I keep it super simple too. I do a little mirepoix in there, so the celery, carrots, and onions.
Right.
But then just cabbage, potatoes, and ham. And I render my ham. I don't know if Grandma Mary did that, but I render my ham first, so it's got a little bit more of a tooth to it than.
I guess I do too, because then it makes the juice more.
So yeah, I feel like it's still Grandma's soup. I might do it a little bit different, but
I think Grandma's smiling.
I like to think so.
But yeah, she grew up not knowing how to cook. And she married Dad, and he was in the Marines, and they went to Florida, where he was stationed. And the lady next door was from the South, and she's the one who taught Mom to cook.
No, I didn't know
That's
that.
why the Mom's food was so based in Southern cooking.
Oh, cool.
So she's the one that taught her how to make that amazing fried chicken that she made.
Yeah. We don't have a recipe laying around for that, do we?
I know how she made it, Matt, but I can't. But one thing she did is she used Crisco. Crisco, the white. Actually, wait, Dad and I just got some of that at the store the other day. White Crisco, and she made it hot, really, really hot. She used the pan that I still have, but I can't make it the same. She dredged it in flour, put salt, pepper, and paprika on it, and cooked it in this really hot grease. It wasn't at all greasy, and it was amazing.
She do it in a Dutch oven, maybe?
Nope.
Just in a cast iron pan?
Nope.
What
steel.
Huh?
Stainless steel.
Oh, okay.
Remind me when you're down, I'll show you the skillet.
Yeah. It has the black knob on the lid. Does it have a lid?
It does have a lid, it has black knob, but black handle.
Yeah, I think
it's an old Revereware, like old, because she was using it when I was little.
Yeah.
And I've used it. I've tried to make her chicken in it. Doesn't work.
Oh.
I don't know. I chicken out too early. I don't get it hot enough for one thing.
Yeah, well, the heat is such an important part of it, and I feel like people tend to I think more often than not, they're afraid to get it too hot, so they end up cooking it low and slow, and that works for cheaper cuts of meat, like fattier cuts of meat, but it doesn't work for everything, and it definitely doesn't work.
Chicken and gravy and mashed potatoes, and then she put it on the counter where it sat all day. We didn't have germs back then.
Right.
It sat all day, and we would just eat pieces of it every now and then we'd have it again for supper, and then she put it away if anything was left.
Well, I mean, most of that stuff is pretty safe sitting out. According to the food codes, food can sit in the danger zone for 4 hours before you can't serve it. And that's lower than 140 degrees. So after it comes out of that screaming hot Crisco, it's not going to be lower than 140 degrees for a good hour.
True.
And then it's not
and I
that
imagine
long.
There probably were less germs as far as in meat processing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, animals are probably cleaner, I would think.
Yeah.
Factories, not so much.
No.
Rivers, not so much.
Not at all.
All right, well, I think it's time to wrap it up. We're at 9:00, and it was awesome talking to you. I hope everyone enjoyed it that was checking everything out. I really appreciate it. I love you, and I appreciate all your support.
Oh, love you too. I'm your
All right.
biggest fan, and I've
I
been
know.
longer than anybody.
All right. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, love you too.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.